Welcome back to the All the Smoke MMA show, the All the Smoke MMA podcast, whatever the hell you want to call it. Thank you guys so very much for tuning in. Belal Muhammad, first title defense this December. Wanted to get that shit in before Ramadan, and I respect it. Gets 2 fights this year after tragically, because he was waiting for the title shot, only fought fucking once last year. So we have a lot to talk about with UFC 310 because Dana White dropped a bunch of fights in the main card. There's a bunch of fights that got announced for the prelims, early prelims. So we're going to be getting to that. It's a really great card of the year potential. Well, we have 308 and 300, so maybe not, but we have a top 3 card potential here. We're also going to be talking about a few of the fights that were announced for November and January because it is my job, y'all, to feed the people, to feed you guys with the latest fights that were just announced. We're going to be doing an early preview of the UFC 310 prior to that, and if we have time, there are a few other fucking things I would like to talk about. Good things. BMF title tournament, whatever. Timestamps are in the description below. If you guys don't want to just sit and listen, if you have certain topics you want to look at, check out those timestamps. So starting with the UFC 310 main event, the UFC 310 early preview, if you will. So, all right, this fight is really good, to be honest, guys. Like, whether you love or hate Belal, this is a really good fight, and I feel like we're in for a treat, to be honest. I don't think this is going to be a boring fight by any means. I mean, Shavkat really doesn't have many, to be honest. He's coming in with a mean 100% finish rate, the boogeyman of the division, and he's scary, man. I would have liked to see in an ideal world him fight JDM, maybe Usman, before getting the shot, but JDM's hurt right now, and I would rather see Rakhmonov over Usman getting the title shot because Belal wants to fight now. Shavkat hasn't fought since last December, which is insane because y'all remember that fucking tweet where Shavkat was talking about Belal's inactivity? Come on, dude. Like, you're no one to talk, but Shavkat regardless has some great wins. I mean, he had a fight of the year contender with Jeff Neal last March. He had a good win over Stephen Thompson, got the second round sub last December since we're talking about it, but Neil Magny choked him out as well. I mean, other than that, in terms of like big names, those are the wins he has, but of course 100% finish rate, undefeated, 18-0. I mean, the guy's unbelievable, and if there's any contender, my point with all that Usman and JDM shit from earlier is, if there's any point with that, it's that Rakhmonov is the guy. I mean, we're gonna have Colby Covington fight. We're gonna have Colby Covington fighting Belal, dude, before GTA 6. Anyway, so I really think it's a great fight. I mean, if Belal wins, I think it's gonna be, I don't want to say a dominant decision, but a really competitive fight, and then he gets like 4 of the 5 rounds, something like that. And if Rakhmonov wins, here's the tricky part, because my early pick for this fight is Belal Muhammad. All right, don't fucking sue me, dude. Bedtime MMA, whatever, dude. All right, I don't like Belal, to be honest. Some of his fights are hard to get through, but at the end of the day, he's the best welterweight, or at least you got to say he's one of the best welterweights in the world right now. I mean, he's beaten the who's who, man. Dominated Leon Edwards, although Edwards did have a couple moments, but dominated Leon Edwards, beat Gilbert Burns. Kind of a boring fight. It was a boring fight, but broke Burns' arm, if that's anything. TKO over Brady. We don't want to talk about that. Win over Luque, Stephen Thompson, Damian Maia, Diego Lima. I mean, and he's on what I believe in an 11-fight win streak right now, I believe. So the guy is him right now, and it's unfortunate because most people hate him. So, like, the amount of people that were upset when Belal won, dude. I mean, here's my thing, right? I wasn't super upset, to be honest, because Leon, I just know that it's bad for the division if Leon is champ because he just doesn't fight. Whatever, bro. I'm gonna fight Gilbert Burns next year. Like, come on now. You already know Edwards did not want the smoke. I know Dana was hyping him up because he took on all those fights at 300, but I'm not saying Edwards would avoid top contenders. I just think he's kind of a fighting once a year kind of guy, and it's unfortunate. I think he was stalling the division. At least Belal, as boring as he can be, as annoying as he can be, at least he fights, and at least he's down. Like, he wanted Shavkat. Like, that was one of the first things he said in like the post-fight presser after he won the belt. So he wanted all the guys, all the smoke, if you will. That's so white, bro. I'm sorry, but he fucking does, man. And for that, I respect Muhammad for that. So in terms of how stylistically this fight is, I mean, I think we're in for a treat. I think we're in for a war. I think Muhammad's going to be able to take Shavkat down. I mean, Shavkat has solid takedown defense, and when he needs to get the takedowns down, he gets them at the very least most of the time. But I think Belal has a really good chance to get this guy down. I mean, to repeatedly do it over and over like he did against Edwards, I don't think so. I think Rakhmonov is going to definitely be the toughest test. You could argue maybe JDM, but I think otherwise I think Shavkat's definitely the toughest test for Belal right now in the division. So now, is Shavkat going to be able to get the takedowns down on Muhammad? That's going to be really interesting to see. Muhammad has 90% takedown defense. And man, he's solid on the ground. I mean, that's primarily his style anyways. But he did prove, Belal, he did prove that in that fight against Edwards. I mean, he pieced up Edwards as crazy, as insane as that is. What is this timeline, bro? What is this timeline where we saw Belal piecing up Edwards? He even had him kind of rocked in one of the earlier rounds. It was insane. I just don't... This is where it gets tricky, right? Because I don't really see him piecing up Shavkat. Shavkat is solid on the feet, man, and he has a lot of power behind those hands. I can't really see Shavkat getting the sub here, so I think Belal is just too solid on the ground. You know, I think Shavkat can have his ways with a lot of guys. I mean, he subbed Jeff Neal standing up, so he really doesn't even need to take it down. I mean, he's dangerous in the clinch as well, and he could piece up he could piece up Belal in those clinch exchanges and on the feet. So it's like, on the ground, though, I think the best chances are going to be for Belal. I think he's going to want the fight there against primarily his style, but the striking has improved. That's my point with mentioning how he pieced up Edwards, is that like his striking has improved lately. I mean, we did see a bit of it. Well, what I should say, I'm sorry. He did TKO Brady, and I know, again, Brady is primarily a grappler. You know, Brady can hold his own on the feet, of course, but he's primarily a guy that wants to get you down, hold you against the fence maybe, and it's like, I just feel like Muhammad's been improved. Sorry. I'm sorry. But I feel like Muhammad has been improving. And again, we're dealing with an 18-fight undefeated streak versus an 11-fight win streak. So, I mean, this is as high quality of a matchup as it gets. And I'm really excited for it, dude. So, and I think a lot of people, if Belal wins this, okay, I probably should explain this a bit more. So why I think Belal is going to win. Like I said, I think it's going to go to a decision. I think he's going to be able to take Shavkat down a few times. I'm thinking he's going to be able to hold his own on the feet. And I can't see Shavkat finishing him, to be honest. As crazy as that is, because I know it's just fucking Belal. But I can't see him getting the sub, standing or on the ground. I can't see Shavkat knocking him out. I mean, the last time Belal got knocked out was... I got his record right here. Sorry, I'm not memorizing the Belal Muhammad lore, but yeah, the last time was 2016 against Vicente Luque. And then you have, even his last loss was 2019 against Jeff Neal. So he hasn't lost in years and years, and he hasn't been finished in even longer than that, almost a decade. So I can't see Shavkat doing it. And is he probably going to? Probably. I'm really fucking curious to see the betting odds, because Shavkat's going to be a favorite, but the question is how much. I like those odds for Belal. I think he takes this by decision, by really trying to shoot for those takedowns, trying to maybe go for the same approach as he did for the Edwards fight. I mean, who knows? Uncle Khabib probably has another plan, probably has another game plan for him, like how he did in the last fight. So that's what I think about that fight, guys. I'm really excited for it. I think it's a good main event. And I like that people are kind of accepting it. I like that it isn't really being like just a shit on Belal fest. Like, it seems like people are really excited for this matchup, so I love to see it. Moving on, so we have Alexandre Pantoja versus Kai Asakura as the co-main event. Now, I'm not even going to bullshit you. I don't want to bullshit you guys. I don't watch one championship. I primarily watch the UFC once in a while. I'll catch a PFL fight. It's just, I don't want to bullshit y'all and go on some rant about Asakura, but what I do know about him, because I did check out a couple of his fights and I did look at the record, and what I did notice about him is that he primarily gets his finishes, Kai Asakura, within the rules that the UFC doesn't have, or in other companies, like when he was in Ryzen, whatever the fuck, he was able to kind of get his finishes primarily through strikes that are illegal in the UFC. And I'm very curious. I know Guru said it. He's like, if you want to bet on Asakura by DQ, that might be a good bet. And geez, he might have a good point with that one, because it's going to be really interesting. And he also, Asakura fights at 135, so now he's going down to 125. You really can't just get a title shot at 135 off a debut. I mean, Steve Ercek got the fucking title shot in May. So at flyweight, you can kind of, there's an asterisk with a lot of these title shots. You can kind of loosen it a bit, because you got Royval, who's the next number one contender, and this is another Pantoja trilogy. So I think that's why the UFC really wanted Taro to win. I think in an ideal world, they wanted to go to Japan and they wanted to do Asakura versus Tyro, which would have been great, but well, hypothetically. But Taro came up short. Great future ahead of him, though. But anyway, so Asakura, again, gonna really be curious how he matches up against Pantoja, because I do know Pantoja. I'll tell you that, and it's hard to make a prediction, so I'm just not going to yet. I'm going to say this one, but I would lean towards Pantoja. From what it seems like, he's going to have the clear grappling advantage, and obviously we've seen Pantoja is able to hold his own on the feet. Clearly, he's going to want the fight to go to the ground, but I'm interested in this fight. I even without knowing Asakura, I knew a few months ago, I heard the talks of him getting signed, and he was a big star in Japan, and I think the UFC wants that. I think they want that crowd. That's kind of an untapped market for them. Which is where, I mean, One Championship is, I believe, based out of. So, there's clearly fans over there that are digging MMA, but the UFC, Tyra, as I feel like, unless I'm missing somebody, definitely the biggest name in the UFC to represent Japan. And now you have Asakura, and I think they see where the money is. And I think because Asakura draws is another thing I found out, like, has a big social media following, gets a lot of views, has good highlights, and he's a star over there in Japan, and he's selling out. And selling out crowds, I'm sorry. Not selling out like a bum, I'm sorry. Selling out crowds, and that also makes it really intriguing. And, I'm like fine with Pantoja. He can get into good scraps. He's put on some good fights, entertaining ones, some as of late, but I just think it'd be good for flyweight. Asakura, it just adds such a fresh element to the division, which it really needs right now, because especially if Albazi beats Moreno, people are going to be pressed about that. You have Royval, who's the number one contender right now, and it's just tricky with that. Kai Kara France, you could argue he was next, but maybe he'll wait for the winner of this or fight somebody else. I don't know. But these flyweights, they got to fight each other. There's a lot of prospects on the rise, but we're kind of just in this weird period. We're stalled. Just figuring everything out with the post-quadrilogy between Moreno and Figgy. And I think Asakura winning would honestly be good for the division and adds fresh matchups. We don't have to see Pantoja keep fighting trilogies, quadrilogies, duologies, whatever the fuck. So yeah, early prediction, I would lean towards Pantoja. I'm going to obviously look more into Asakura as the fight approaches. I would say most fans are probably on the same page with that. If you had heard about him getting signed a few months ago, kind of looked into it, but I just don't watch one. Anyways, so it's still intriguing. Hope Asakura wins. So moving on, this is the feature fight, I believe, of this card. Vicente Luque going against Nick Diaz. Now, I'm just going to get this out of the way because everyone knows it. We all hate this matchup, right? I mean, do you like this matchup? I don't. I feel like most people have been shitting this fight. We wanted Diaz versus Ferguson, which really doesn't excite me, but it definitely made way more sense than Luque. I mean, I know Luque is kind of in a bubble right now because had a good winning streak and then lost 2, and then he beat RDA, and now he lost to Buckley, and that was this year, so he's looking for a bounce back, and I think Diaz is the bounce back. I mean, Nick Diaz back in the days, man, he just got fucked over by but all that shit for getting tested for pot, which was ridiculous, or that they banned him for 5 years. They took away his prime in his career, came back a few years later against Robbie Lawler, got beat bad, looked just like a milk jug for that fight, like a bag of milk, and bro had the lighter version of he had the Diet Ben Askren pack, bro. It was bad, and he got fucked up in that fight. And now here we are 3 years later. I don't see Nick Diaz getting any younger. I don't see him getting any better. I don't get him getting any quicker. It's tough because none of us want to see Diaz get knocked out, dude. But that's what's gonna happen. I mean, Luque's about to be like a -600 favorite or something crazy. And all due respect, I mean, I'm not taking those odds because what are you gonna win off of that unless it's a lock for the parlay? But I don't know, man. I mean, am I interested in this fight? To be honest with you guys, no. And I'm sure this is gonna be a situation where it's gonna be December, and I'm like, oh my god, dude, maybe I'm hyped for this. But as of right now, and even for the August when this fight was initially going to go down, it's not intriguing. Diaz is old, and Luque, there's better opponents for him out there. Outside the rankings, or upcoming prospects, or around that 10 to 15 range in the rankings. And I know a lot of welterweights are kind of booked right now with fights, so I guess that is a bit tricky, but I don't know. This fight should have just died when it got initially canceled in August, so I don't know. Going with Luque, obviously, for that one. Moving on. So Dominick Reyes versus Anthony Smith. So I mean, we're all rooting for Reyes here, right? I know we got Lucas Tracy over there in Smith's corner, but you know what's crazy is that I don't like Smith, but I still listen to that podcast with him and Bisping. Bisping carries it. I'm sorry. I mean, Smith, I just don't like the guy, bro. He just has such bad takes. It's such bad takes. I definitely like him more as an analyst and a fighter, but that's crazy because I don't like him either. And he fucked up my parlay against Petrino, man. And am I hurt about it? Yeah, I am. I'm sure a lot of parlays were hurt by Smith. Look, okay. On a serious note, is he the most boring or annoying fighter? Obviously not. There's a lot worse out there. But this is a good fight. I'm really intrigued for this, and I'm going to go with Reyes. I'm confident in that. I'm curious what the odds are going to be. I would assume Smith's going to be a favorite, but I just like the momentum that Reyes got versus Jacoby, and fought in June. So did Smith. They're both making solid turnarounds, fighting twice this year. And Reyes, I could just see this being one of those situations where like this is the comeback. The tricky part is, I think Smith is a very winnable fight for him, but when I'm looking at some of these other matchups in the top 10, I think top 15 he's got it, but top 10, I don't see him getting past most of those guys, which makes this hard because I'm really rooting for Reyes here. I hope he gets, a 2-fight win streak after all the bullshit that he went through after losing to Jones, which he won, by the way. We all know this, but I'm not going to, but... stylistically, this is a good fight. I think we're gonna see a finish. I'm looking at a lot of these fights on UFC 310, and I think they're intriguing matchups. But I would say most of them would be going to a decision if I had to guess. They could be. I mean, they're fun fights, but I would have to guess. But this one, I feel like I'm confident. I think we're either gonna see Smith, or Reyes. I think we're gonna knock out TKO, whatever. No matter what. Smith is one of those fighters, man, where he's not bad, but he's just so mid, man. I mean, there's nothing great that Smith has in his arsenal. Like, his striking is all right, but it's not good and it's not great. His wrestling, offensively, defensively, it's all right, but it's nothing like good or great. You know what I mean? Like, he can hold his own against the prospects and around like that 10 to 15 range in the rankings. You know, Smith's not a bad fighter by any means. He's solid, but he's just getting older, and he's just getting wilder, not in the good way. And I just lost to Delizzi, beat Petrino, lost to Roundtree, beat Spann, and then lost to Walker. So he's been on a win-win, lose-one kind of thing his past few fights. I just see Reyes taking it. So really rooting for him here. It's a good fight. Probably a featured prelim if I had to guess, whatever. But moving on to what Dana wishes would be the featured prelim, Sterling versus Evloev. Now, honestly, guys, I like this fight. Is it going to be the most exciting? 98% chance, probably not. But, I mean, it's just going to be one of those high-level grappling matchups, and clearly Sterling and Evloev are two of the best wrestlers in the division, especially in the rankings, so I think it was just like matchmaking-wise, this makes sense. Put them against each other. Obviously, like, each of these guys is, after this, probably going to have to fight one more opponent, and then if they get past that, they're probably going to be getting the title shot. So UFC is like, all right, we don't like these. We all know that UFC doesn't fuck with these heavy grappling styles. They clearly haven't been the biggest fans of Evloev and Sterling. I mean, Dana, even after the fight with Evloev and Earl Allen, he was saying that was like the worst fight in the card, and it's crazy because that was one of Evloev's like more fun fights. You know what I mean? So these guys are preying on these two's downfalls. So put them up against each other, and all jokes aside, I mean, I think we're going to be in for some good grappling exchanges. Is this fight going to decision? Yeah, but let's see who can be the more dominant here. Let's see who can impose each other's will, impose each other's style on each other, the better of the two. And I'm really curious about this. I really don't know who to lean with, to be honest. I mean, I could see Sterling winning. I could see Evloev winning. I really don't know. It's just all about who can impose their will and impose their strength and get the better on the ground. And also better on the feet, to be honest. I think the fact that both of these guys really want to take this fight to the ground. I mean, every round starts on the feet. You know what I'm saying? So I'm sorry I forgot the words ground and round. Fucking confused there. My bad for that translation error. But I think since both these guys do want to get this fight to the ground so bad, I mean, and since it's probably going to go to a decision, especially with only 3 rounds, I think what's really going to make a difference on the scorecards if the grappling is close is what happens on the feet. Sterling's got a really weird style on the feet. He can kind of funk people up with that, no pun intended, but I mean, Evloev is solid on the feet, but I mean, clearly he's the primarily, I would say that Sterling has the better striking. So if he wants to use it, that's the thing. So if Sterling applies what I feel like most people know he's really good for, and he gets after it, can kind of put on the pace and the pressure, and Evloev's going to need to do the same thing, I think Sterling could take this. So I'm going to lean towards Sterling, to be honest. I'm assuming he's going to be a dog. I think he was a dog. I think he was like a plus 180 or something for their initial fight at UFC 307. But Evloev, really fucking dangerous. Not finishing wise, but just the fact that he's on such a mean winning streak and he really is good on the ground. And he has notable wins over Ige, Lopez, Allen, like beating a few solid names. And he's put on fun fights in his last 2 fights with Lopez and Allen. So I think a lot of these guys, though, some of these grapplers or just people who are kind of on duds or getting kind of dull performances, I think they've been really realizing lately. We saw it with Gamrot. We just saw it with, oh my God, Grant Dawson. Some of these fighters are like, all right, I really need to go. And, of course, many others, but they're like, I need to go out there and, like, if I really want to earn a shot or something, like, I'm looking at these Marabs and Belals, and they had to fight the who's who. Like, I need to go out there and, like, get some highlights. And I think Evloev is kind of trying for that. Maybe. We'll see. We'll see in this fight, But anyways, moving on, guys. So, I'm sorry if I yapped about that one too long. Volkov versus Gane 2. Great fight. This is, I feel like, clearly a number 1 contender fight. I would assume once Jones retires and Stipe retires in November, Aspinall's going to be fighting the winner of this fight. And timing-wise, it makes perfect sense because we'll probably be seeing this around the spring. So, anyways, this is a good fight. I'm going to be going with Volkov. I know Volkov's going to be a big underdog, but I like those odds, to be honest. Probably, I think when this fight was initially booked for, what was it, 308? I think he was like a plus. It was over 200, so I like those odds, to be honest. That was the same thing for the Pavlovich fight, which I sadly picked Pavlovich for that one. That was one of those fights, dude. We all know this. We've all experienced this, where you just have that gut feeling. You're like, oh, dude, this doesn't seem right. Like, Pavlovich was a big favorite. It kind of made sense for him to win, but you're thinking about it, and you're like, Volkov could definitely take this. This doesn't feel right. Someone is just off, and I'm not down Volkov anymore. He's on a 4-fight win streak. One of the longest, if not behind Tom, the longest in the division. And I know heavyweight is kind of a fuck fest, especially outside the top 10, and more so especially outside the top 5. But I mean, hey man, beating Pavlovich, Tuivasa, Romanov, Rosenstruck, and 3 out of 4 of those by finish in the first or second round. I mean, they're good wins. And these guys obviously fought once before, and the reason why I think Volkov is going to win this is because I think he's just looked better, looked hungrier, and had better wins, and he has better momentum since they fought the first time. And you have Gane out here making movies and shit, and not that you can't, they're human beings, all right? Not that you can't do shit outside of training camps, outside of just training in general, of just being a fighter. Like, I mean, I want everybody to eat, man. If you're making money and you are able to like get these opportunities, like hell yeah, do it. But with Gane, he just doesn't strike me as one of those fighters that is like super hungry to get the championship, super hungry to get these wins. I mean, and most of the time lately, I mean, his last 2 wins, he was in Paris, had the crowd really behind him. I mean, got good wins. The fight with Tai Tuivasa was super fun. He got a good win over Spivac the last time out. But the Jones fight was just embarrassing for him, man. I mean, especially in retrospect, I feel like the longer that Jones has been out, I feel like the worse it's just aging for Gane. Because the more we're thinking about it, we're like, man, you got messed up by Francis on the ground. To be fair, that was a pretty close fight. And some people thought Gane won, so that one is more understandable. And then he just got fucked by Jones. Like, the second Jones had him on the ground, it was over within a minute, a couple minutes. So, man, I don't know. I just think Volkov has improved more since their first fight. I think Gane has only fought, let me see here since I got the records. Gane has fought 5 times. Wait, am I doing the math right? Dude, I'm mental sometimes. Yeah. Gane is 3-2 in his last 5 since fighting Volkov. losing to Ngannou and Jones. And to be fair, those were the champions and two of the best heavyweights. Jones is more so one of the best fighters, more so than heavyweights, but two of the best to do it. And Volkov, Drago is 1, 2. Yeah, I got to count out loud, dude. I'm that guy. I don't know how they gave me a decree. And he is 5. He's 5. They gave me a degree, bro. He's 5-1 in his last 6 since he fought Gane. So just better results. And I mean, he's also beaten Martin Tybura. He's beaten Martin Tybura as well. I forgot to mention that. And again, the only guy he lost to in his last 6 fights for Volkov was Aspinall, who is the best heavyweight on the planet right now. So, it's undeniable too. Like, Tom is the fucking man right now. And I know Ngannou, like I said, Ngannou and Jones, there's no shame in losing to them. But I don't know. I just like where Volkov's at right now. I like the momentum he's on. And Gane, and stylistically, I don't know. This is going to be a fun fight. It could go to a decision. Whichever one of these guys controls the pace and the pressure and really lands the right shots, tries to avoid getting caught by those big hammers. Gane is more of a volume fighter, so it's going to be kind of tricky for me to see him knocking out Volkov. So if Gane wins, I would assume it's by decision, just putting on the volume, piecing him up. But with Volkov, who knows? Who knows how Volkov could get it done, but I just like his chances in this. So moving on. Okay, so that was the main card, I believe. So we're kind of moving on now to the UFC 310 prelims that were announced. Not all of them. There are a few that I'm not going to be discussing, but moving on to the first one, Chase Hooper versus Clay Guida. Dude, what a random ass matchup. All right, am I the only one? Am I the only one that's thinking that? Because when I first saw this get announced a few weeks ago, I'm like, what the hell? I like Chase. And I'm rooting for him in this fight, and I think he's been looking good lately, dude, in his past few performances, and I like his chances in this fight. I would assume he's going to be the favorite. Guida is just, as of late, kind of been one of those win a fight, lose 2 fights, win a fight, lose 2 fights. That's kind of how it's been going for the past few years. And also, Guida's fought some good names, don't get me wrong, also some mid ones. So it's just, I'm talking about the past few years. I just think this is kind of a fight. I don't want to say meant for Chase to win, but it just seems like they want to give Chase kind of moving on to the win streak. This would definitely be. I think Jordan Levitt was definitely, Hooper's toughest test so far. In my opinion, but I think with Guida, it's definitely the most recognizable name. I think fans, you're like, oh, it's Clay Guida. You know what I mean? I don't know if you could say that about Borshev or Levitt or Floor, his past few opponents. What other big names? Chase is just... And also, dude, why I think he's going to win this fight? He came into the UFC super young. Had a good performance on the Contender Series, got the contract, was kind of, win one, lose one, win one, lose one, and now he's on a 3-fight win streak. His last performance was just an absolute mauling. And I think Chase was like a plus 120 dog for that one. I'm like, dude, get me these odds. I bet. And Hooper won me good money that night, and he just fucked him up. Got the second round sub. Here, let me check out the strike difference for y'all, because I remember it was insane. Yeah, we have 129 total strikes from Hooper to 2 from Borshev, and 6 minutes of control time for Hooper out of the 2 rounds. So just a domination. And the fight against Levitt, he had that was when I first started to see he started to take this more like aggressive approach. I think he was sick. I think even when I'm recording saying this, he was kind of sick of just being the Ben Askren lookalike, kind of like the NMF, nicest motherfucker on the roster, Wonder Boy, and just kind of like that wholesome young vibe. Well, whatever, because he's young as hell too, only 25 years of age. Happy early birthday, Chase. September 13th. Hey, there you go. But I like this new aggressive edge that he's taken on, and he's been, personality wise, not really, but in the cage, he's been showing it, getting the fuck after it, dude, dominating these guys, looking for the finish, looking to put on the pace, the pressure, the ground and pound, the volume, just really trying to get a bonus. And oh my god, and he hasn't for his last 2 fights. That's insane. Anyways, not to just yap about this fight super like a bunch, it doesn't need to be talked about that much, but anyway, so I like this fight, to be honest. Very fucking random, but I think Hooper is going to mess him up. I think he's going to put on the pace, pressure, volume, and either get a dominant decision or a finish in the first couple rounds, maybe by a sub. And Anyways, moving on to Joshua Van versus Cody Durden. You gotta fucking love. I mean, I know flyweight, like I was saying earlier, isn't a dud. It's stalled right now, and there's a lot of repetitive matchups, and we need more fresh blood. And like I was saying, we're getting fresh blood. And you have these two young up and coming guys. Durden just had a great performance against Chanel. And Joshua Van, I mean, 4-1 in the UFC, and really young. How old is Van? I got the age in front of me. I'm trying to do the mental math. 23 years of age. That's insane. So I knew it was like something early 20s, but and also, dude, when I'm looking at these guys, it makes me just baffled that Rosas Jr. is fucking up. Like, he's like 4-1 in the UFC. It's insane. 19 years old. How is he still 19? Anyways, I don't want to just talk about Rosas Jr. So I love that these young up-and-coming flyweights are getting after it. Like, they want momentum. And I think a lot of people learned about Joshua Van this year because, I mean, he's already fought 3 times: January, July, September, and now December. And he's put on entertaining fights. That KO to Charles Johnson was nasty, or the one he received by Charles Johnson, that was nasty. But he bounced back, and then he got the win over Edgar Chairez like right after. I like these guys' momentum they're on. Durden has been, let's pull up Durden, because I knew just got the last really good win over Chanel, but Chanel fucking retired after that. Like, I'm not saying a win over Chanel is the greatest thing in the world, because he did lose 2 right before that, so and by finish. So Cody Durden. Okay, here we go. So yeah, okay. So 1-3 1, 2 1-2 in his last 3, and before that had a good 4-fight win streak. I think he's 13, 14, 15, something like that in the rankings right now. I'd have to check, but this is gonna be, I don't know who to lean for this one. I just know it's gonna be a fucking scrap. I think it's gonna be really good exchanges on the feet. This fight could go to the ground for sure, don't get me wrong, but I see good exchanges on the feet. I see both these guys trying to get the hell after it. You could tell by their activity, and you could tell by their past performances that, like, I feel like this is going to be a dogfight, which flyweight needs more of these, and again, they need more up and rising, recognizable names, and I think both these guys are going to go and put on a show. I think this is going to be probably one of the better fights probably of the night, to be honest with you. I think this is going to be a sleeper. Like, I think this is going to be a really good fight. I mean, matchup wise, stylistically, it's really good. And especially, like, it's going to help both guys' stock go up. Especially if they have a chance to maybe get a bonus. But do I see this fight going to decision? I know these guys, both of them, clearly are capable of getting finishes, whether it's on the feet or on the ground. But honestly, even despite that, both these guys being clearly capable of finishes and piecing motherfuckers up, I do think we're going to see a war, and we're going to get 3 rounds of it. I see this going to a decision. Who do you pick? I would lean towards Joshua Van, to be honest. I don't know what the betting odds are going to be for this one, but that's just my opinion, my one piece. So moving on, we have Randy Brown versus Bryan battle. This one's pretty freshly announced. I could have sworn that Randy Brown was going to fight Carlos Prates, but I don't know. I like this matchup as well. I don't know what these two have to do to get somebody in the rankings. And I mean, it's welterweight. Like, there are guys to fight. There's guys to fight. You know what I mean? We got Luque fighting Nick Diaz instead of like Brown or Battle, which is insane. But anyways, so I really like this fight. I think we're in for a really good scrap. I mean, I was talking about the last fight being a fight of the night contender. I could easily see this one being as well. I could see a great finish as well. If I could, I'm going to lean towards Battle in this one. I don't know what the betting odds are going to be, but I'm going to be going with Battle. I mean, you didn't think I was going to lose to a Frenchman, did you? You didn't think I was going to get knocked out by a Frenchman, did you? That promo alone he cut after the French crowd. I mean, I was like looking at the comments on Insta when this fight got announced, and it was just all referencing that. I mean, I feel like that really made Battle's stock go up. I feel like he's been putting on really good performances. I mean, really his whole career in the UFC, but especially as of late, I mean, been super flashy, entertaining, getting the finishes, like trying to put on dominant, just a dominant display. And like, it's insane that he hasn't had the chance to fight in the rankings. And you could say the same thing about Randy Brown. I mean, Randy Brown isn't as much of a finisher as Battle is, but Brown gets the fuck after it. Randy Brown is 4 and he is 7 and dude, the math, bro, I fucking can't. He is 7-1 in his last 8, and that only loss out of the last 8 fights. Like I said, he's won all of them except the one, and that was to JDM, who clearly a top 5 contender right now, one of the best welterweights in the world. So no shame in that. And Battle, I mean, Battle has just been putting away guys, man. And even the fight against Lusa, I mean, he was piecing him up. Most people thought he was winning that fight. Or no, everybody. I mean, he was winning that fight. He was he was fucking him up. So Battle really should be in a 4-fight win streak right now. But obviously that ended in the no contest. So 3-fight win streak regardless. Like I said, fight of the night potential. I could see. Oh my God, here, let's see this, because I'm leaning towards Battle, but again, how do I think it's going to go down? I really don't know how this one is going to go. I just know we're in for a really fun treat, a great finisher, a fun war. And it's going to be, it's a good like feature prelim to have, but I know that there's a lot of big names on that card, so I don't know how that's going to go. But anyways, moving on. So we are done talking about UFC 310. Jesus. So, oh my God, I didn't even realize how long that was. So moving on. I just have a few more fights I got to talk to you guys about. So Carlos Prates versus Neil Magny was announced for the 100th, Jesus Christ, the 100th UFC Apex card. I'm a Prates fan. I mean, Jesus Christ, 4 knockouts in the UFC, three performances, 3 bonuses, and finally gets a ranked opponent. I mean, he's part of the Fighting Nerds, who is definitely the camp of 2024. I mean, all of those guys went undefeated in this year, I believe. Absolute monsters, and they've just been good just on mean win streaks in general. You got Barajo, you got Silva. I mean, and Prates, man, he's really dangerous. I definitely see him getting the finish over Magny on this one. Definitely on the feet by knockout. And Magny is coming off a brutal, what was it, an elbow? Yeah, it was a brutal elbow to Magny at one of the recent fight nights. And I respect that Magny's getting the fuck after it. I mean, he's really trying to hold on to that top 15 spot. I thought Michael Morales is really dangerous. I think he's definitely one of the better prospects. Just in the UFC in general, to be honest. I mean, the sky's the limit for him. But I think Prates, I mean, if Morales is doing that to you, I think Prates is going to do something real similar. You know, a round 1 finish, a round 2 finish. It's just, I feel like inevitable. I mean, this isn't a Mike Mallet situation, you know what I mean? And I mean, Magny's not totally washed. Like, he can get the wins. He's kind of on a win-1, lose-1, win-1, lose-1, win-1, lose-1 kind of situation. He kind of has been able to really he did have a good win over Jeff Neal, but other than that, lately he's just kind of been beating, like, either number 15 or kind of, like, outside the rankings kind of contenders, and he's beating them. I mean, that's why he is the gatekeeper of the division, and that's why he's been around for so long and still maintaining one of those top 15 spots. I mean, sometimes he flips in and out, but you know what I'm saying. And I mean, again, the win over Mal was good, but it's like, everybody clown Mal for that fight, because if you're getting TKO'd by Neil Magny in the 3rd round, what are we doing? But anyways, I see Prates taking the lights out of Magny. It's weird that this is the main event. This is for oh my God, when is this? November 9th. I'm sorry. So this is for the November 9th card. Actually, no, it doesn't say this is the confirmed main event. I mean, I'm pretty sure I thought it was, and it could be, but kind of hoping for something a little bit better. I mean, I'm not saying you have to celebrate the 100th Apex card, you know, put a candle on it or some shit, but I don't know. And I'm just excited for the Apex to be done with. I know they're doing all these renovations and shit, and they're finally going to get more people in there, which it needs so bad, and they're going to update all the, you know, the electronic voodoo, whatever the hell, and I think it needs it so bad because everybody dreads Apex cards, even when there's some good matchups on there, and even then they pile up dog matchups on the Apex cards because they know if they had it in front of a crowd that people wouldn't buy it, and it's just, I don't know, dude. We get some really, really stacked pay-per-views this year, but at what cost? You know what I mean? But I don't know. I love Prates' chances in this fight. I think it's just a way for him to enter the rankings. And I love the amount of up-and-coming welterweights. Rakhmonov, Morales, Prates, JDM, and more. Like, welterweight, after kind of going through, I mean, the Usman era was so much fun, but he was lapping the division. So it's nice to have some fresh blood. And then Belal at the head of it is insane. Moving on. So Chris Curtis versus Roman Kopylov. This is for January 11th, I believe. I like this fight, to be honest. I don't think people give Curtis enough credit for. I know he could be one of the saltiest fucking fighters in the UFC. I'm not saying you gotta like the guy, all right? You're gonna get Sean Strickland coming in here too. Here's the fucking thing, you guys. We're gonna go to war this Saturday. Me and Chris Curtis, dude. Here's the fucking thing. Like, I don't even know if they're friends anymore, actually, but oh my God. Remember when he was on Rogan, dude, and he was just the fact that Chris Curtis was his best friend got mentioned 10 goddamn times, dude. But I love it. I still hope they're homies, man. But Curtis's last performance, man, he definitely this was going to be my point. He definitely doesn't get enough credit for being an entertaining fighter. I mean, most of his fights, I mean, he can get into scraps. You know, he can, once in a while, he'll get the good finish. When he first got to the UFC, he definitely was getting a bunch of them. But as of lately, he's kind of primarily, his fights have been going to decision. But even then, I mean, most of them are good fights, you know. Last time he got a finish was against Joaquin Buckley in 2022. I kind of forgot that fight even happened, to be honest. But, I mean, Curtis is ranked number 15 right now. It seems just kind of like an opportunity, kind of like the last fight for, I mean, just somebody to kind of enter the rankings that they kind of want to. Exciting striker, because that's what Roman Kopylov is, man. One of the most dynamic, fun strikers, kickboxers in the UFC. Kopylov had a kind of competitive but fun fight against Cesar Almeida, but it was a good win. Right before that, the sub to Anthony Hernandez, but no shame in losing to him because Hernandez himself is one of the best prospects kind of in the UFC, and well, I say kind of in the UFC, and especially at middleweight. That's why that fucked me up. That's what I was gonna say. And I'm really intrigued for that fight with him and Michel Pereira this weekend, by the way. But Anthony Hernandez, well, and Michel Pereira, they're both like, there's no shame in losing those guys. You know what I mean? They're on mean win streaks, and they love they're finishers, man, and they're just going to be the future of the middleweight division. I definitely could see each of those guys being like top 5 contenders in the next few years. So no shame in losing to that. I mean, other than that, he was on a 4-fight win streak right before, all by KO or TKO. Kind of started a bit odd in the UFC, man. I forgot they started out 0-2, but I feel like middleweight is just like that top 10, 15. It's just kind of like, you know, guys that lost to Izzy or DDP or Whitaker, basically. And then you have those three basically just duking it out in a love triangle, a fight triangle, if you fucking will. And then, like, there's just so many guys, like, in that 10 to 15 range, though. I mean, you have Barajo and Imavov that kind of just entered. They're moving up, and they're getting really close to a title shot. But other than that, I feel like middleweight just, and you got Shara Bullet as well, and so many other guys. Like, middleweight, it just has so many prospects and up-and-coming contenders. And it's going to be really interesting seeing them all duke it out for those. I think that 10 to 15 spot in the rankings is going to be getting really competitive over the next few years. And Kopylov, man, I mean, he's a machine. I'm definitely going to be leaning with him in this fight. I think this is going to be an entertaining fight. It's hard to say if it goes the distance or not. I would assume so. Curtis can be kind of hard to take out, but he is beatable, and there are holes in his game. Not to say there aren't in Kopylov's, but because, you know, he wants to keep this fight on the feet. You know, one of the most fun kickboxers in the UFC, a dynamic striker. He's definitely going to want to keep this one up there. But we're in for a fun fight. I could see Kopylov taking this 29-28 decision. So Jailton Almeida versus Sergei Spivac. This is the fight of all time. You definitely got to go with Almeida, I feel like. I mean, Almeida has proved that he is one of, if not probably the best grappler in the division. I'd put, you know, Aspinall is mean on the ground, and he could take anybody out down there. And you have Blades, who's primarily a wrestler, and Almeida fits into that like top 3 range. I mean, that's primarily how he's getting a lot of these wins, is by subs and just dominating people on the ground. I think once he hit that, I mean, and he was so entertaining, man. He was on such a roll, and he was gaining so much steam, momentum, and popularity. And then the Derek Lewis fight happened, which was in the main event in like his home country, and he just sat on Lewis and put on a stinker. And, you know, they fucking say in fighting, man, that you're only as good or memorable, whatever, as your last fight. And that was a stinker. And then then he just came out the gate shooting for his life on Blades, trying to hold him down. He clearly was totally comfortable with doing that for all 3 rounds. And thankfully Blades got that nice knockout. But the last fight against Romanov, I mean, he did get the finish in the first round. And Romanov, you know, kind of one of those blobs in like the 10 to 15 range in the rankings, but it's still a solid win. Romanov isn't totally out of it, so don't get me wrong. So it's an all right win, but, and again, they get to the first round finish, just immediately took him down, and everyone was kind of just like, oh God, are we going to have to fucking watch this the whole time? But then it just kind of came out of nowhere, Jesus. And that whole card sucked. That was so bad. There was like no finishes that night. So, but again, the matchup itself, so Sergei Spivac, he's coming off of a win against Tybura. Been getting some good wins, but there's also some losses. He's beatable, and not that Almeida isn't, but other than Blades, he's undefeated in the UFC, and most of his wins, all of his wins except for the Derek Lewis one coming by decision, or by finish. Almeida, there's potential, you know, he's definitely one of the best fighters in heavyweight, definitely deserving. of kind of that top 5 material, especially again when you look at who's outside the top 10. It's just like, oh my god, dude. So, I could see this fight. I don't know. It's not the most intriguing matchup. It's for UFC 311, by the way. I'm sorry, I didn't even say that. So this is for UFC 311. This is one of the confirmed fights for that one so far. But if I had to assume, probably like a featured prelim kind of vibe, I would assume so, because especially considering that they're probably going to stack up the January card. You're probably going to have Merab and Umar, Islam and Saryukian on that card, so they're probably going to stack that one up. I could see this being like a feature prelim, because I don't think they could trust Almeida anymore. It's an alright fight. I don't know. Heavyweight's just fucking bizarre right now, but I'm going with Almeida. I'm sorry I barely touched on Spivac. I just don't have much to say about this one, guys. But anyways, that's all. That's really it. I was hoping I have a bit more time to kind of touch on more stuff, but again, my camera and my editing system, it doesn't really allow me to kind of make videos over an hour yet. This is my longest one yet. So thank you guys so very much for watching. I appreciate you all listening through all the goddamn yapping. Hope you enjoyed. Let me know your opinions in the comments below. We're almost at 500 followers on Insta. I appreciate you guys for that. So if you want to give a follow, go ahead. It's at All the Smoke MMA. And yeah, I appreciate you guys. We're in for a really good fight card this weekend with Michelle Pereira versus Anthony Hernandez. That should be really fun. It's in the Apex. So, yep. That's fucked. But yeah, All the Smoke MMA show. I appreciate you guys. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys next time.